Hello friends, welcome to the world of science fiction and forgotten words, Alien Universe. Don't forget to like, subscribe and never miss a new stories and movies from this channel. Thank you.
The laughter started before the human even spoke. It rolled across the command bridge of the Dominion dreadnought like distant thunder, deep and cruel, bouncing off the curved walls of black alloy. Officers at their stations paused just long, enough to glance toward the center platform, where the source of the amusement stood towering over a single motionless figure. Warlord Graxith of the Varkesh Dominion rarely laughed. When he did, it meant someone was about to suffer. Outside, the massive viewport behind him, a human colony burned. Entire districts glowed orange beneath thick clouds of smoke, while Dominion dropships descended like metal predators, carrying soldiers to finish what orbital bombardment had begun. Another species, learning its place. But today's entertainment was different. Because today, the Dominion had captured a human alive. His uniform was torn, stained with dust and blood, yet he remained upright, shoulders straight, chin level. His dark hair fell across his eyes, but he made no effort to move it. He simply stood there, silent. That silence irritated Graxith more than any insult could have. The Warlord's massive frame leaned forward, armored plates shifting with a grinding sound as he examined the human. With scaled skin the color of storm clouds and eyes that glowed faintly gold. When he spoke, his voice vibrated through the floor. A few officers exchanged glances. A junior navigator suppressed a nervous hiss of laughter. Graxith's grin widened, revealing rows of serrated teeth. "You fought bravely," he continued, circling Elias like a predator studying prey. "Our records show you destroyed 3 landing craft before capture. Impressive, for something so fragile." Elias did not react, not to the praise, not to the insult, not even to the Warlord's towering presence only steps away. His heartbeat remained steady. Graxith could hear it. The Dominion valued strength above all else, and fear was the truest measure of weakness. Even seasoned commanders eventually broke beneath Dominion interrogation. But this human cadet, nothing. Graxith stopped directly in front of him. "Are you mute, human?" Silence. The bridge felt colder. Graxith's tail lashed once against the floor, metal ringing beneath the impact. His amusement began to twist into irritation, yet curiosity held it in check. He leaned closer, studying Elias's face, searching for micro-expressions. Tremors, anything that would reveal fear. There was only calm, a dangerous calm. With a gesture, the viewport magnified a section of the colony below. The image sharpened, revealing streets filled with fleeing. Explosions bloomed like silent flowers. Your people will kneel, or they will vanish. Either outcome serves the Dominion. Still, nothing. Elias kept staring forward, eyes unfocused, as if watching something far beyond the bridge. That was when Graxith noticed it. A faint movement, not of fear, but of counting. The human's lips moved almost imperceptibly, forming numbers without sound. Graxith frowned. "What are you doing?" Elias stopped moving his lips. Slowly, deliberately, he lifted his gaze to meet the Warlord's glowing eyes for the first time since capture. Dominion officers shifted. It was certain. Warlord Graxith felt a flicker of something unfamiliar brush the edges of his mind. Doubt. He crushed it instantly. "You will speak," Graxith growled, "or I will make your silence legendary." A technician stepped forward, activating a neural probe that unfolded like a metallic insect, its limbs humming with energy. At last, Elias Mercer spoke. His voice was quiet, rough from smoke and dehydration, yet perfectly steady. "You shouldn't have brought me here." A ripple of laughter spread across the bridge. Graxith threw his head back, roaring with amusement. "And why?" the Warlord asked, leaning close enough for Elias to feel the heat of his breath. "Is that, Cadet?" "Because," Elias said softly, "this is where it happens." Graxith's grin sharpened. "Where what happens?" The human did not answer immediately. Instead, he looked past Graxith, past the officers, past the bridge itself, as though listening to something only he could hear. A faint vibration traveled through the deck, so subtle most Dominion sensors ignored it as background noise from the ongoing battle. But Elias felt it. He closed his eyes for a fraction of a second. Then he opened them and smiled. 10 seconds, he said. The laughter stopped. Elias said nothing more. He simply began counting again, this time audibly, his voice barely above a whisper. 10. Dominion officers glanced at each other, uncertain whether this was madness or bravado. 9. The faint vibration returned, slightly stronger. 7. A sensor officer frowned at his console. Warlord. 5. The vibration deepened into a distant tremor, like something enormous shifting in the void outside. We're looking at their displays. 3. Warning glyphs flickered briefly before vanishing, and the human colony burning below was no longer the most dangerous thing in orbit. The silence after Elias said one lasted less than a heartbeat. Then the dreadnought shuddered. Not a gentle vibration from distant weapons fire, but a deep, violent jolt that rippled through the massive hull, like something had struck it with the force of a collapsing star. Consoles flickered. Several Dominion officers staggered, claws scraping against metal as they fought to remain upright. A warning tone burst across the bridge. "Impact detected," a sensor officer shouted. "Unidentified origin." Graxith's head snapped toward the VIEWPORT. Space itself seemed calm. No explosions. No incoming fleet. No visible threat. But the dreadnought trembled again. Harder. Lights dimmed for half a second before emergency systems surged online. Status glyphs cascaded across tactical displays in rapid streams of crimson and amber. Report. No visible damage source. No projectiles. No energy signatures. Graxith turned slowly back toward Elias. The human stood exactly where he had been, restraint field still active, posture unchanged. Only now, the faintest hint of satisfaction lingered behind his eyes. "What have you done?" Graxith asked, voice low. Elias didn't answer. Another tremor shook the dreadnought. This time, the viewport shimmered as distortion rippled across the void, like heat rising from invisible flames. Officers stared outward, struggling to understand what their sensors refused to categorize. A tactical analyst spoke hesitantly. "Warlord, gravitational readings are fluctuating. There are no stellar bodies within range, yet the data kept scrolling. Micro distortions. Localized gravitational spikes. Brief spatial compression events that appeared and vanished faster than Dominion algorithms could model." Graxith felt the bridge, atmosphere tighten. The humans counting had not been madness, it had been anticipation. "Speak," Graxith growled, stepping closer. "Explain your actions before I tear the knowledge from your mind." Elias met his gaze again. "You ever watch ants invade a nest?" Elias asked quietly. The question caught Graxith off guard. "What?" "They pour in, take everything, break everything, think they've already won," Elias continued. "But sometimes the nest isn't empty." A third impact struck the dreadnought. This one threw 2 officers from their stations. Sparks rained from a damaged console as containment fields struggled to stabilize power surges racing through. "The ship's spine. Source located," the sensor officer shouted. "Origin is internal." That single word froze the bridge. Internal. GRAXITH single quotes, SIs widened slightly. How? No boarding signatures detected. No teleportation events. No life forms beyond registered crew. Another tremor rolled through the hull, followed by a distant metallic groan that reverberated like a wounded beast echoing through corridors. Kilometers away, Graxith's gaze returned to Elias. "You were searched." "Yes," Elias replied calmly. "You were scanned." "Yes." "No devices, no implants, no transmitters." Elias tilted his head slightly. "You're very good at scanning for things you understand." The words landed heavier than any weapon. A communications officer suddenly cried out, "Warlord! Multiple internal cameras are failing." Displays blinked to static, one by one across the security grid. Entire corridors vanished from observation, as if swallowed by darkness. "Power fluctuations localized to engineering sectors," another officer added. "Automated repair drones are not responding." Graxith felt something unfamiliar rising inside his chest, not fear, but the recognition of an opponent acting beyond prediction. He grabbed Elias by the collar, lifting him slightly despite the restraint field. "You are a cadet," Graxith said. Voice barely contained fury. "Cadets do not infiltrate dreadnoughts." Elias didn't resist. "That's the thing about humans," he said softly. "You never know which ones matter." The ship lurched violently. Gravity flickered, for a fraction of a second. Everyone on the bridge felt weightless before stabilizers slammed back online. Several officers hissed in alarm. Gripping consoles, an engineering transmission forced itself onto the bridge channel, distorted and chaotic. Containment failing, unknown growth inside reactor manifold, its rewriting conduits. Signal cut to static. The bridge fell into stunned silence. Graxith released Elias slowly. "Growth?" he repeated. Elias's smile was faint but unmistakable. "Yeah," Elias said. "That's a good word for it." A new alert appeared across every tactical display simultaneously. Unauthorized System ACC's Dominion. Encryption layers collapsed, one after another like falling dominoes. Command pathways rerouted without authorization. Automated defense grids began cycling through commands that no Dominion officer had issued. A navigator whispered, almost to himself, "This is not possible." Elias finally shifted his stance slightly, rolling his shoulders as if the restraints were little more than inconvenience. "You spent years studying our ships," Elias said. "Reverse engineering our drives, learning how we think." Graxith said nothing. "And while you were doing that," Elias continued, "we were learning how you think." The dreadnought groaned again, deeper this time, a sound that vibrated through bone and metal alike. A tactical officer shouted in panic, "Warlord! Autonomous weapon batteries are turning inward." The bridge erupted into motion. Commands were shouted. Countermeasures deployed. Override codes transmitted. Nothing worked. Graxith stared at Elias with growing realization. "You are the trigger," the Warlord said. Elias didn't deny it. Another tremor surged through the dreadnought, accompanied by distant explosions echoing through internal compartments. Graxith stepped closer, towering over the human. "You sacrificed yourself." Elias's expression softened, just slightly. "I volunteered," he corrected. For a moment, neither spoke. The bridge lights flickered again, this time failing to fully recover. Shadows stretched across the chamber as emergency illumination painted everything in dim red. Outside the viewport, Dominion ships continued their assault on the colony below, unaware that their flagship was beginning to unravel from within. Graxith's voice dropped to a whisper. "What did you place inside my ship?" "Human?" Elias looked past him once more, listening to the distant sounds of chaos spreading through steel corridors. Then he answered, "Not something," Elias said. "Someone." And for the first time since the invasion began, Warlord Graxith felt the unmistakable edge of fear sharpen in the darkness behind him. Graxith did not move for several seconds. The word "someone" lingered in the air like a toxin slowly spreading through the bridge. Around them, alarms continued pulsing in low rhythmic bursts, painting Dominion faces in alternating shadows of red and black. Impossible, Graxith said at last, but the denial sounded weaker than he intended. Dominion vessels were fortresses. Boarding one without detection was considered statistically irrelevant. Every corridor monitored, every hatch secured, every life form tracked down to microbial variance. Yet the data unfolding across tactical displays told a different story. Multiple sealed sectors were reporting pressure changes. Maintenance shafts were opening without command. Security drones were offline, and something was moving. Sensor officer swallowed hard. Warlord. Internal motion tracking is registering intermittent contact. Display it. A holographic grid expanded over the central platform, mapping the dreadnought's vast interior in layered transparency. For a moment, nothing appeared. Then a single pulse blinked into existence. Sector 12 engineering. Sub-level. It vanished, reappeared 3 corridors away, vanished again. The movement pattern was erratic, defying predictive pathing, as if whatever it was didn't care about routes, doors, or obstacles. A junior officer whispered, "Is it phasing?" "No known species." Another began. The pulse jumped again, closer to the core. Graxith's tail struck the floor once. Hard. Seal bulkheads around the contact point. Bulkheads unresponsive, came the immediate reply. Command authority. Denied. Double quotes denied. The word echoed like an insult. Graxith turned back to Elias, whose calm presence now felt less like defiance and more like control. "You brought an infiltrator," Graxith said. Elias nodded slightly. "You boarded during the ground assault." "Not exactly." Graxith's eyes narrowed. A sudden explosion echoed faintly through the ship's internal structure, followed by a cascade of system failures, lighting up engineering panels. Containment field instability. Coolant circulation failure. Structural integrity alerts. Each warning stacked atop the last, like collapsing dominoes. "What is it?" Graxith demanded. Elias hesitated, not out of fear, but as if deciding how much truth to give. "You ever hear the phrase force multiplier?" Elias asked. Graxith did not answer. "One human in the right place can change a battle," Elias continued. "But one human in the wrong place can end it." The motion pulse appeared again. Now, inside the reactor approach corridor. Security teams were already converging. Dozens of Dominion soldiers moving to intercept. Their icons formed a tightening circle around the unknown presence. For a brief moment, the bridge felt reassured. Numbers mattered. Dominion doctrine relied on overwhelming force. The pulse stopped moving. "It is contained," an officer said with relief. A pause. Then the soldier icons began disappearing. Not retreating, not repositioning, disappearing. One by one. No combat telemetry. No distress signals. Just silent removal from the grid, as if erased. The bridge fell into horrified quiet. A communications officer attempted contact. "Squad Theta. Respond." Static. "Squad Theta. Confirm status." Nothing. Another icon vanished. Then another. A faint sound filtered through open comm channels. Not weapons fire, not screams, but something stranger. Metal. Bending. Heavy objects falling. Breathing. Slow. Controlled. Human. Graxith felt his scales tighten. "This is not warfare," he said. Eyeless finally allowed himself a small breath. "No," he agreed. "It's problem solving." The last squad icon disappeared. The motion pulse resumed, now unobstructed, heading directly toward the dreadnought's primary reactor. A tactical officer spoke in disbelief. "It is alone." Elias's gaze flickered with something that might have been pride. "Yeah," he said. That's usually when humans do their best work. Graxith stepped forward, looming over him. You expect me to believe a single organism can dismantle a Dominion dreadnought? Elias met his eyes. I expect you to watch. Another tremor rippled through the ship, stronger than before. Lights dimmed further. Emergency systems now struggling to maintain stability. Across the holographic grid, reactor containment warnings multiplied. The infiltrator pulse slowed as it approached the core. Access chamber. Then stopped. For several seconds, nothing happened. Bridge officers leaned forward, tension stretching thin enough to snap. Graxith's voice dropped to a whisper. What is it doing? Elias listened. Far away, through kilometers of armored corridors, something metallic screeched. Then came the sound of tearing. Not explosive, not violent. Deliberate. As if massive machinery were being opened by hand. Elias closed his eyes briefly. That, he said quietly, is the sound of someone who really hates losing. The reactor status shifted from amber to red. Containment integrity, 82%, 81%, 79%. Stabilize it. Graxith roared. Engineers scrambled, flooding the system with commands. But every attempt was countered instantly by unauthorized overrides. Something inside the dreadnought was rewriting its nervous system faster than Dominion intelligence could respond. Graxith stared at Elias, understanding dawning piece by piece. You are not a cadet, Graxith said. Elias smiled faintly. Oh, I am, he replied. First deployment. The reactor integrity dropped again. 75%, 73%. A low hum began resonating through the deck plating, deep and ominous, like a star preparing to collapse. Outside the viewport, Dominion ships still rained destruction on the colony below, unaware that their flagship was drifting closer to catastrophe with every passing second. Graxith felt the balance of power shifting in a way he had never experienced before. Not fleet against fleet. Not army against army, but certainty against uncertainty. He looked down at the quiet human who had walked willingly into capture. You said this is where it happens, Graxith murmured. Elias opened his eyes, and for the first time there was unmistakable emotion in them. Not anger, not fear. Hope. Yeah, Elias said. Behind them, reactor containment alarms escalated into a continuous, piercing tone. And somewhere deep inside the Dominion dreadnought, a lone human reached the heart of the beast. The reactor alarm became a constant scream. Across the bridge, Dominion officers worked with frantic precision, issuing override after override, flooding the ship's network with command authority codes that had never failed before. Yet each attempt dissolved seconds after execution, erased by an intelligence moving faster than their systems could comprehend. Reactor containment, 68%, 67%, 65%. Graxith stared at the holographic grid, where the infiltrator pulse hovered directly. Graxith's gaze sharpened. No weapon, Elias repeated. No saboteur. Another tremor shook the dreadnought, followed by a heavy reverberation that rolled upward through the hull like distant thunder trapped inside metal. Graxith's patience snapped. Then what is it? He demanded. Elias hesitated, but this time, it wasn't calculation. It was memory. Her name is Mara, Elias said. The bridge fell silent again, but the silence carried confusion rather than fear. A designation? Graxith asked. A person. The reactor integrity dropped to 61%. A communications officer suddenly gasped. Warlord. Receiving localized audio from the reactor chamber. Play it. Static filled the bridge speakers at first, layered with the groan of stressed metal and distant machinery tearing apart. Then, through the noise, came breathing. Human breathing. Calm. Measured. And then a voice. Female. Yeah, That panel definitely wasn't meant to open from the inside. Several Dominion officers stiffened. The voice continued, slightly breathless, but unmistakably casual. Elias, if you can hear this, tell Command their ship design is adorable. Elias smiled. Graxith felt the world tilt slightly. You maintain communication? The Warlord asked. Not exactly, Elias said. She just talks a lot. The bridge speakers crackled again. Okay, found the main manifold. Wow, this thing is huge. Who signed off on this layout? Seriously. Metal screeched loudly in the background, followed by a heavy clang. A stunned engineer whispered, She is dismantling the reactor housing. With her hands, Graxith's claws flexed involuntarily. What is she? He asked. Elias met his gaze. Mechanic. The word felt absurd against the chaos unfolding across the dreadnought. Reactor containment, 58%, 56%. Impossible. Graxith said. Elias shrugged slightly. She fixes things, he said. Today, she's fixing a problem. The speakers came alive again. Elias, remember when they said this ship was indestructible? A pause. Well, turns out indestructible just means nobody tried hard enough. The bridge erupted into motion. Security teams rerouted. Internal. Defense turrets activated. Atmospheric. Venting protocols armed. All converging on a single human inside the most protected chamber of the dreadnought, and all failing. Turret systems powered down seconds after activation. Pressure controls locked. Out. Defense grids rewritten. Every automated protection the Dominion relied upon simply refused. Graxith stared at Elias, realization spreading like ice. She is not alone? Graxith said. Elias tilted his head. In a way, she is. A new alert flashed. Core access locks. Manual override manual. Not digital. Not network. Intrusion. Physical. Grax. ITH single quotes S eyes widened. She is inside the machinery. Elias nodded. Double quotes. Yeah, she prefers it that way. The speakers crackled once more. Okay, Elias, good news and bad news. Elias looked up at the ceiling as if she were standing above him. What's the bad news? He murmured. The bad news is I'm about to void every warranty this ship ever had. A faint chuckle echoed over the channel. The good news. I found the heart. Reactor containment dropped to 50%. A deep harmonic vibration began resonating through the dreadnought. The unmistakable sound of a power core destabilizing beyond. Safe parameters. Dominion officers stared in horror. Graxith felt something far worse. Then fear forming. Understanding. Double quotes. This was never infiltration. Graxith whispered. Elias looked back at him. No. This was bait. Elias didn't respond. Graxith's gaze hardened. You allowed capture, so we would bring you aboard. Silence. You wanted access to the flagship. Elias finally spoke. You invaded the colony, he said softly. You took the bait first. The truth landed with brutal clarity. The destroyed, landing craft. The cadet who fought just enough. The convenient capture. The silent counting. Every step had guided events toward this moment. Not sabotage. Strategy. Graxith felt the weight of the realization settle across the bridge, like gravity doubling. You sacrificed an entire colony, Graxith said. Elias's expression changed instantly. No, he said. We evacuated it. The words struck harder than any weapon. Outside the viewport, burning cities suddenly looked different. Not defeated. Empty. Graxith turned back toward Elias slowly. You let us believe we were winning. Elias's voice was barely above a whisper. Sometimes, the only way to stop a predator is to let it think it's hunting. The speakers crackled one last time. Elias, Marat's voice said softly, I'm ready. Elias closed his eyes for a moment. Reactor. Containment. 45%. 43%. The bridge lights flickered violently. Graxith took a step toward Elias, rage and disbelief colliding. You destroy my flagship, and you die with it. Elias opened his eyes and smiled. That was always the plan. But somewhere deep inside the dreadnought's core chamber, Mara laughed quietly. And the biggest truth of all had not yet been revealed. The bridge trembled as if the dreadnought itself had begun to panic. Every system screamed warnings. Emergency lighting strobed through clouds of drifting smoke. The once flawless Dominion flagship now sounded like a wounded creature, groaning. From stresses it was never designed to endure. Reactor containment, 39%, 38%. Graxith stared at Elias, fury radiating from every movement. You believe sacrifice makes you victorious, the Warlord said, voice cold and controlled. But victory belongs to those who survive. Elias didn't answer immediately. Instead, he watched the VIEWPORT. Far beyond the burning atmosphere of the colony. Faint streaks of light were beginning to appear in orbit, tiny flashes against the void that Dominion sensors had ignored as debris. But they weren't debris. They were lifeboats. Thousands of them. Small evacuation craft, drifting silently away from the world the Dominion thought they had conquered. Elias finally spoke. Victory belongs to the ones who protect, he said. The words landed with quiet certainty. Graxith turned back toward tactical displays, realization sharpening into urgency. Fleet command, he barked. Prepare jump coordinates. We withdraw. But navigation did not respond. Jump drive offline, the navigator said, voice shaking. Core synchronization lost. Graxith's claws tightened. Restore it. Cannot. Reactor stability below operational threshold. The Warlord turned slowly toward Elias again. You trap yourself alongside us, Graxith said. Your mechanic dies. You die. My ship dies. There is no triumph here. Elias's expression softened. You still don't understand. At that moment, Mara's voice returned over the bridge speakers, calm despite the chaos roaring behind her. Hey, Elias? Yeah? You remember that promise you made me? Elias smiled faintly. Which one? That I wouldn't have. To run this time? Graxith watched the exchange, confusion twisting into suspicion. What does she mean? The Warlord demanded. Elias didn't look at him. She lost her family during the first Dominion invasion. Elias said quietly. Couldn't stop the ship that did it? A metallic crash echoed through the speakers, followed by Mara's steady breathing. So, Elias continued, she decided to learn how ships work. Reactor containment, 32%, 30%. The harmonic vibration deepened, rattling consoles and bones alike. Mara spoke again. Okay, I've rigged the core cascade. It'll tear this thing apart in about 3 minutes. A pause, but there's something you should know. Elias's smile widened slightly. Yeah? I'm not here to die. Across the bridge, officers froze. Graxith's eyes narrowed. What does she mean? He asked. Elias finally looked at him. That was the part you never figured out. Elias said. A new alert flashed across every Dominion display. Unauthorized vessel docking. Core maintenance bay. Graxith spun toward the holographic grid. Small craft icon appeared directly against the dreadnought's hull, hidden within the blind spot created by Dominion armor layering. A location no Dominion vessel could safely approach, but a human craft could, because it was built from Dominion wreckage. The realization struck like a physical blow. You built a retrieval ship, Graxith whispered. Elias nodded. We build a lot of things from your mistakes. The speakers crackled. Docking clamps engaged, Mara said. Core chamber depressurizing. That was loud. A hiss of venting atmosphere roared briefly over the channel. Extraction path clear. Be there in 60 seconds. Graxith felt. Rage surge. You escape, he said. You destroy my ship and escape. Elias met his gaze without flinching. You invaded a species that weaponizes survival, Elias said. What did you expect? The dreadnought shuddered violently. Reactor containment, 24%, 22%, outside the viewport. Dominion assault ships were beginning to break formation, confusion spreading as command signals from their flagship degraded into static. Graxith stood motionless, staring at the human cadet who had walked willingly into captivity. You orchestrated all of this? Graxith said. Elias shook his head. No, he replied. We did. The speakers came alive one final time. Elias, I'm at the airlock, Mara said. Your turn. A faint shimmer surrounded Elias's restraints. Graxith's eyes widened. You disabled them? Elias stepped forward as the field collapsed. Harmlessly. About 10 seconds after you activated them, Elias said. Graxith lunged. But Elias was already moving, not attacking, not fleeing, just stepping backward, as a section of the bridge wall silently unfolded, revealing a concealed hatch no Dominion scan had ever noticed. Human engineering, human patience, human planning. Elias paused at the threshold. Graxith's voice followed him. You believe this ends the war? Elias looked back one last time. No, he said, but it changes how it's fought. Behind him, the hatch began to close. Graxith watched the human disappear, leaving only alarms, smoke, and the realization that Dominion superiority had just been rewritten by two individuals and a plan measured in patience instead of power. Moments later, a small craft detached from the dreadnought. S-hull. It drifted silently for several seconds. Then its engines ignited. On the bridge of the dying flagship. Warlord Graxith stared through the viewport as the vessel, carrying his defeat, accelerated into the stars. Reactor containment, 10%, 8%. In the escaping craft, Mara slumped into her seat, grease-streaked and exhausted. Elias laughed softly. You okay? She nodded, breathing hard. Yeah, she said. Ship design was adorable. Behind them, the Dominion dreadnought began to glow from within. Not an explosion. A collapse. Systems failing in cascading harmony until the massive vessel folded inward like a dying star. Light flashing once before vanishing into expanding debris. Silence. Return to orbit. The evacuation flotilla continued drifting safely away. And far ahead, the small human craft carried two figures who had just proven a lesson that Dominion would never forget. Strength wasn't size, power wasn't numbers, and sometimes the quiet human standing alone in the enemy's bridge wasn't the prisoner. He was the countdown.